Hello, welcome along. So we have reached the business end of the World Cup. There can obviously be a phony war aspect to the pool stages, Rugby World Cups in particular. The odds probably always were that Ireland would play France in the quarter-final, and so it has come to pass. Sunday, 1 o'clock in Exeter, Sandy Park. It's on RTE2. Scott Beamond will name his team on Friday. This after the wins against Japan and Spain, and then weekend just gone by, the 40-0 defeat to New Zealand. The other quarterfinals, by the way, also on Sunday following Ireland's game. England will play Scotland. Saturday, New Zealand, South Africa, and Canada, Australia. 1 o'clock, 4 o'clock kickoffs on both days. Our rugby coverage, as ever, with thanks to Energia. They sponsor rugby in Ireland at all levels. Grassroots with the AIL. They're official energy partners as well to Leinster, Connacht and the Irish men's and women's teams, and their Rugby for All initiative welcomes everyone of all abilities to participate in the game. To learn more about their exclusive home energy offer for rugby fans, you can visit energia.ie/rugby. So let's get out and about. There's a bit of ambience here, if that's okay. We'll do our best with the line quality. Sinéad Kissane for the Irish Independent is currently in the team hotel breakfast room. Sinead, which is just where you hang out. You just hang out there all day usually. Is that the gist?
I'm in my ideal position right here. Yeah. Yes, for sure.
More croissants. Keep them coming. There was a press conference today. Presumably, you don't just actually loiter there. There was a reason.
Not most of the time, no. There is a press conference. I was just out at the Ireland training, went out to kind of get a sense of the few injuries that Ireland have, and probably for the first time in this World Cup, I am confident about Aoife Wafer playing. Ooh. Yeah, so she did a bit of training out there. Scott Beamond said last Friday, I never heard him sound as confident. I never thought she was going to be fit for the pool games. I always reckoned it was going to be the quarterfinal. And definitely the sense, I went out to training just for you, Joe, just to get the update. And I think indications are she's looking good. And I think if she plays, she will start. It won't be on the bench.
Yeah. Well, that is good. I mean, that's like a little espresso shot for everyone. Anna Caplice is with us as well. Hey, Anna, where are you? You're at a coffee shop somewhere. I'm
in Twickenham on down by the Eel Pie. Fans who've been to Twickenham before will know it. Lovely spot. I'm actually staying here for the rest of the World Cup in nearby Twickenham. So, nice place to be. It's funny though that there isn't a game here until the final. So this kind of there isn't much. I've overheard people talking about it. They weren't even sure what was going on. So it's a bit of a strange one. But just, a lot of the rugby community is very swept up in this. I think it's from, like you say, the business end onwards that the kind of general public starts to become more and more awakened. I feel like that's the same at home as well, maybe.
Very much so at home is my feeling, I have to say. And there are a lot of things going on, The Republic of Ireland are taking care of the news cycle today, as you can imagine. I did want to get your sense from both of you, your sense of the tournament thus far at large before we get into Ireland. Sinead, anything you want to mention, really? The quality of matches, England as a host venue, attendances. I saw the BBC were really pushing with great fanfare that the group stages had attracted over 7 million viewers on BBC television, and even on their website they were saying that the England v USA live blog had nearly 1 million views. So they were certainly saying from a TV point of view they were pretty happy. How do you feel the World Cup 2025 has gone thus far?
Yeah, really enjoyed it. I definitely think the first game, and me and Anna both felt this when we recorded our podcast afterwards, I found it very emotional, that first game at Franklin's Gardens, just seeing the team going out after everything the Irish women's rugby team has gone through since the last World Cup, found it really emotional. And just even speaking to the parents, you can always only imagine what parents feel like, seeing their daughters out there. And I, spoke to Fiona Tute's mother last week, and she said she was just watching the game behind tears in her eyes. So really emotional, that first game. And, some great play, love the tries, love the variety of tries. And then I suppose, look, last weekend in Brighton was the biggest crowd. The atmosphere beforehand as well, in particular, was unbelievable. It was incredible. Never seen a crowd like it, obviously. But, it was still deflating coming away from Brighton, moving up here to Exeter on Monday. But look, we'll see how it goes this weekend. But overall, like it's been magnificent. Obviously, it all kind of steps up in tempo during the weekend. I found being at the Men's Rugby World Cup, there be, you see loads of Irish supporters there during the week around wherever the host venue is, the host city. Not as much here, obviously. But there is something special about this World Cup. And I like the fact in a way as well that it is a bit different. It's such a family atmosphere. Anna, you know that and you felt that as well. And that's to be kind of celebrated in its own way as well. I'm not sure about the crowd for this weekend's game. It's a smaller venue in Sandy Park, 15,000. So we might have just seen the biggest Irish support for a game in the pool stage. We're not quite sure how many people will be at this weekend's game in Sandy Park. But overall, yeah, really enjoying it.
Okay. Anna, your thoughts on the tournament as a whole? Because even in the men's, which is obviously more developed than the women's game, even the men's pool stages and World Cups can be very patchy. How has the tournament been for you thus far?
Yeah, for me, it's been phenomenal. Like, I've absolutely loved it. Opening weekend, like Sinead said, like not just for the Irish team, but like that opening night above in Sunderland. The teams that are here for the first time are the teams that are really under supported, showing up, and so happy to be here and happy to showcase, what they can do. And then there's like the likes of South Africa, who, have been called probably the upsets of the tournament so far. I think the difficult thing as an Irish fan even is that the ramp for us has kind of gone down. Like, definitely the pinnacle so far has been that first game against Japan. That was an amazing weekend. And then next time out against Spain, there was a little bit of a lull. And then sadly for us, like, it's just kind of seemed to have slowly declined across the pool stages. And on the other hand, if we look at France, theirs has gone the other way. So they had a really rusty first outing versus Italy, and then they started to ramp it up, and they seem to be feeling really good now. So for just the way the fixtures fall, and maybe, that's why the pool stages can be patchy and things like that. But overall, as a tournament, it's been amazing, like actually amazing. It's kind of blown me away a little bit in many ways. I don't think I could have, even though I always pictured it like this, I've never felt it. And like that the numbers that came to that Irish game in Brighton last weekend, like, that can only mean that we're on track for, like, a sold out Aviva if things keep going the way they are, because there were so many people. And for me, it was the first time that I met many, many fans who weren't connected to someone. Like, I always ask, whenever I find random fans, I always ask them, who do they belong to? And they're all, so often a cousin or neighbours or, something like this. But there were just, families there who were we just wanted to come. And the other thing about that, and the family atmosphere is really, really important and really beautiful and lovely, and I hope women's rugby holds on to it forever. But the other side of it is that, Asahi is one of the main sponsors. They're still holding on to this like party atmosphere. Like, it's still got, the heart of rugby as well, which is like sing-songs, the crack, that's a great all-round event and tournament so far. It's been amazing.
And just on that, Joe, my parents came over to Brighton. They flew over from Kerry last weekend. It was their first time ever being at a women's international, and they've been at numerous men's internationals through the years. And so it just kind of gave me a chance before I started working just to sit out on the concourse, and we happened to be sitting near the former internationals. My parents were blown away, and they were probably the first to kind of give out to me years ago when they sitting in the Aviva, and there's people coming in with their pints and them having to get up the whole time, and they just found this atmosphere at the Brighton and Hove Albion Stadium so much better. They just enjoyed the occasion. They were blown away by the Black Ferns as well. But even afterwards, there wasn't really that sense of overt disappointment because they just came to see it. And I think irrespective of how this World Cup pans out for Ireland, they've got new fans. And I think that experience, even though it was so disappointing and deflating, that performance, this Ireland team has still picked up fans. And it was the first time I've probably seen the team do a lap of honour. They just wanted to go around the stadium afterwards and just thank everybody who'd been there. Usually they would just come to the in front of a main stand at wherever they were playing. But this time they just made sure to walk around, clap the crowd, show their appreciation, because it was a really phenomenal support and just a kind of a special day still for Irish rugby.
Okay, great. So the nuts and bolts then at the injuries, Sinead, you mentioned Aoife Wafer, so touch wood, that would be a major fill-up There's obviously concern over Stacey Flood and then Adele McMahon and Eve Higgins at HIAs. Are there any other bumps and bruises? How are we looking going into Sunday?
Yeah, so we'll obviously know more later when we talk to one of the coaches. There's a press conference in just over an hour's time. So look, the Aoife Wafer would be amazing. We also have to keep in mind she hasn't played since Easter Sunday, obviously, against Wales over in Rodney Parade. I was there that day. So Stacey Flood, I didn't see her when I was at training today. Eve Higgins was there. We're due to speak to Eve later, but we spoke to Eve after the game. She had to go off for a HIA. She said she felt pretty fine, but she will still have to go through those return to play. So Adele McMahon said, hopefully Fiona Chute will come back into contention. I didn't see her at the start of training today. I think if she is fit, she will come back in. I think El Perry was a late withdrawal from the game as well the last day. But I thought Niamh O'Dowd actually did very well. And so I would expect Niamh O'Dowd to hold on to her place in the front row. But yeah, I mean, the big thing obviously is Aoife, but Stacey Flood is a massive blow. I mean, I think we were talking about this, Anna, afterwards. Maeve Deely started at full back in the warm-up game against Scotland. She's kind of out and out full back, but what we saw happen was Eve Higgins had to move from the centre to full back the last day. So I would not like to see that excellent centre partnership that she has with Aoife Dalton be broken up, so we'll have to see. But Scott Beeman said after the game, nobody's ruled out at this stage. As soon as Stacey got that injury, I was fearing the worst, but it's a cut. We're not sure the kind of cut, if was a laceration or anything, so we'll have to kind of wait and see on that. But yeah, some big calls. Usually in the past few weeks, Scott Beeman texts the players at 8:00 on a Wednesday, or a text comes through, and that's when they find out. So if that is the same for this week, the players will find out tonight, the team, and it'll be publicly named then on Friday morning.
Okay. I was chatting to Aoife Wafer at the Mansion House, and I sort of saying, like, say it is realistically you come back in for World Cup quarter-final, like from a fitness point of view, how does that sit with you generally, or do you need a few games to get back up to speed, Anna? And she just kind of looked at me and said, I'll be fine. So she wasn't too worried about the lack of game time in advance, but it's still a big ask.
Yeah, it is, but also it's a World Cup quarter final. So what are you waiting for, kind of a thing? And she's proven to just have that in her pocket. Her energy, her ball carry. That's just how she plays. She doesn't need kind of the full Six Nations to kind of start to throw that on. She has it from game one. So I'd be confident that her fitness is really good, because when you're injured and doing rehab and you're in a full-time program, you're being beated all the time. It's actually easier being in training. It's a really difficult place to be, like, physically, because you need to be ready to go. Now you could argue that you need that bit of game time. If we look at the Australia captain, who last week she came back into the squad, Pesi Palu. She came back into the squad after being out for a long time and started. And I suppose it was the same kind of thought that we might have now, if Aoife Wafer's ready, she'll start and kind of see how she gets on. I suppose there was an air of that with maybe taking, with Australia, taking that chance on their captain, and she played outstandingly. So I would have every confidence that Aoife Wafer is a player who could also pull that out of the bag for Ireland.
Yeah, so it'd be amazing. I mean, she said a lot of the time they don't let her train because she's so abrasive and she doesn't need it. So she does seem to be somebody who might have that in her locker. The Stacey Flood point, that's a real cross fingers. Like, Anna, would you take Eve Higgins out of midfield? You're really robbing Peter to pay Paul here.
Oh, yeah, I don't think so. I think it's been one of Ireland's, like, the most consistent element of Ireland's attack and defence, just all around play, has been that centre partnership with Dalton and Higgins. They've been phenomenal. They're definitely to be feared. I feel like if I was France and I saw that shuffle up, I'd be slightly relieved. So I think that if that is the case, then, and you have Maeve Deely in the back, or is Amy Lee Costigan up for it, or don't know who else has been covering that in training. So I think that centre partnership is so key, and I know that obviously fullback is key as well. But that's Stacey was the other kicking option as well. Like Eve Higgins, where you're losing that if you put Eve Higgins back there as well. So, or you're not gaining that or not adding that. So I think I would leave the centre partnership the way it is.
Okay, well, look, we'll watch that space, obviously, from the team's point of view. So in terms of the kind of form that they're in, Sinead, like the 27 conceded against Spain is, it's not amazing, but these things can happen, I suppose. And then New Zealand, it's a strange thing, the 40-0 scoreline, given the first 10-15 minutes were like positive, and Ireland really met the challenge despite some forecasts that they might bin off the game. And then they were only, in quotation marks, they were only 26-0 down with a couple of minutes to go. So the 40-0 can look worse perhaps than it was. That said, it was a very comprehensive defeat. It really did feel like Ireland arrived at an intensity and a level that they had not played in a very long time.
Yeah, I thought New Zealand were just incredible. And I was in the New Zealand camp on the Tuesday, and they warned this. They were like, "Oh, we are a different team from Vancouver," and you only had to look at their team to see that. But they were, just every cliche about New Zealand. They do it at a World Cup, and I couldn't get over the speed with which they did everything. Their defensive line, their speed of passing. Eve Higgins we asked her afterwards, what was the one difference that she felt the most between Vancouver and Brighton? And she said their defensive line, like they were just absolutely suffocated. I don't think Dan O'Brien has ever experienced something like that before. And, but like still New Zealand made mistakes that almost, kept Ireland in it, as it were, But I heard you say, Anna, and I totally agree. I felt the New Zealand approach and attitude was also like, we're going to enjoy this. Even when they made mistakes, they kind of were smiling, but it was almost like, oh, we know this will come. We know we're going to click someday. But I think for Ireland, they were a bit predictable. I was expecting a little bit more, and I don't know, like you kind of think then when you're overthinking going, or are they holding stuff back? But then that's just reading too much into some things. And I just felt that they were a bit easy to read. Yeah. Like New Zealand could read them. And I would imagine that France are looking at that going, well, if they show us that again, that, we should make a semi-final. So it was a bit disappointing, that aspect, but obviously their effort, everything was incredible. And they were still right in there until the end. And they wanted to give the Irish support there that try that the supporters there were just desperate to have. But, I think they will have to do, and just obviously their defence again, which brings into question, again, obviously they changed their defence coach a few months before the World Cup, which even at the time seemed like a very strange decision to make. And again, with France this weekend, France have been absolutely racking up the tries, so that they are going to bring it this weekend as well.
Yeah. Like Anna, it probably was slightly worrying on both sides of the ball. Maybe start with Ireland in attack, first of all. When you get ambushed by that kind of line speed, sometimes you just need to experience it as a team to realise, oh my God, we had no plan B here. And you hope that that's what they're talking about this week, should France bring it.
Yeah, sure. And like the line speed, the thing is as well, like Ireland didn't adjust to it. And like they had it, they were able to do it. Like, so versus Japan and Spain, they were able to get a bit more carry onto the ball. And I know it's unfortunate because after the Japan game, no one was really talking about 3 key injured players. All of the lead up was asking, are we going to miss the 3 injured players? And I thought that the back row did such a good job, especially versus Japan, and then kind of backed it up against Spain, to not have us asking about the 3 injured players, who are the massive ball carriers Ireland are missing. And now after this game versus New Zealand, all the questions are, oh God, isn't it a shame that, those 3 injured players are injured, So the thing that's missing there is the ball carry. I just thought Ireland were so static receiving the ball, and that comes from a little bit of fear, like you don't think you're going to catch it because the line speed is up and you're so fast. You have to get deeper, but the girls around you have to allow you to get deeper. So if you're the main ball carrier and you want to get a bit deeper, or take time to kind of run onto it, because then at that stage, once the ball is in your hand, even if you get tackled, your momentum is carrying you forward. So again, to kind of refer to Australia, like Australia versus England on Saturday night, they looked like that in the opening kind of maybe 20 minutes, half an hour, where they were getting stuck static. and then one or two girls. And like, it's not a big ball carrier thing. Like, I was a smaller back row. I had to do it that way because I was never going to win that physical clash. I needed the momentum. So it's not about the big ball carriers that, use their weight. You have to be smart as a ball carrier, especially when they're coming up in your face like that. If you're not moving on to it, then the defense that's already moving on to you is going to win the collision and win the meters and just send you backwards. So it's all about timing as well, timing and confidence. Like, if we were talking about this, Sinead, weren't we? What would we do in training this week? I would just be working on the timing of running onto the ball as fast as I can. And then even like we saw it in the opening games as well, runners off 9, loops, tip-ons, like they didn't use any of that. They couldn't. Blackburns had it shut down straight away. But that comes with quick ball placement, quick clear-outs, quick support. Like, that's all really connected, and it all comes back to timing. So that needs to be put together. Those are the jigsaw pieces need to be put back together this week in training, I think.
And would you anticipate, Anna, that the French line speed will be as aggressive as New Zealand's?
Yeah, I think France will have been watching that and be like, okay, this is what we have to do. They will try to emulate what the Black Ferns have done, and France are able for that as well, and also around, like, they're really going to put pressure if we talk about the defensive side of things. Well, it's on both, just the quickness with which France are able to attack and defend. Like, they're really quick, like, in both sides of the ball. Ireland are going to have to match that, like, even in their own defence around the ruck, particularly, especially with Pauline Bourdon-Sansu there. She's just unreal, like, to shut her down, but to shut down, be really alive around the ruck area and defence. That's going to be a huge challenge for 80 minutes against France.
Yeah. Sinead, obviously Ireland's defence is being talked about a little bit, like a little narrow at times, is one of the criticisms. Are the players saying much about that? As you said, it was strange the way there was such a change in such a pivotal coaching role on the eve of the tournament. It's just not ideal. So I guess you'd be slightly worried that might be coming home to roost at the moment.
Well, they haven't really said that much about it. Obviously, they said after conceding those 5 tries to Spain, the general gist was, they got to do better for the bigger teams, because you're wondering if they're the kind of ins they were going to give Spain, what were New Zealand going to do? So I think they basically, I don't think they've gone too far away, is the sense I've got from what Hugh Hogan did with them compared to what Skaysbrook is doing with them. Now, we haven't actually heard from him yet, actually, the new defence coach. So we'll see now. I don't think he's going to be talking to media this afternoon. I think that's somebody else. But I think it's part of their overall game. I know Beeman said after that Spain game that they would be looking, at everything. I suppose they're not going to come out and say there's been a huge shift or anything that. But I mean, when you just look at some of the tries France have been scoring, what I would worry about France even coming into this game is that they've had it kind of easier than Ireland. Ireland have been really road tested in the pool stage coming into this. France haven't had that. That's, if you're trying to look for kind of positives over the experiences Ireland have had in this pool stage compared to France have had it. Like, you would have thought that game against Italy was going to be a right humdinger. Italy were really disappointing. Yeah. They've been really disappointing in this World Cup. So, but again, some of the tries, the defence was not great, obviously against Brazil and by Brazil or South Africa. So that's the one thing I'm pinning it on, is that Ireland have been more road tested going into this quarterfinal, I feel, compared to France.
Yeah.
Even though France look damn good.
Yeah,
they look damn good.
No, they do. And road tested or beaten up, we'll do that with the benefit of hindsight at the end of the game.
Yeah.
Because obviously Ireland haven't beaten France since 2017, but the last year or two, France have not galloped away into the distance with England. They've stagnated a touch, and obviously this year, Dana had a kick with maybe 10, 12 minutes to go level with France. So that was a really close game. Like, that was a live game. And now we're at a neutral venue. And to Sinead's point, Anna, about Ireland being road tested, there's probably a feeling in retrospect about that game against France that it was Ireland's first game of this year's championship. The home-based players in particular don't get the quality of games they need. So it was a step up. And actually we saw the team much better as the Six Nations went on. So, like, they'll be primed here. Like, have they closed the gap in France sufficiently that we have a right good chance here, or have France improved since that Six Nations game?
it all depends on how France turn up. They're so flaky. They can be so flaky. So like, I think the matchups, there's a lot of even matchups there, and then there's a lot of outstanding players on both sides. I think that the key to bring her up again for Pauline Bourdon-Sanson, she's been having a great time. If they can shut her down, and if you can get France kind of feeling a little bit like frustrated, that's going to be really key, because like they haven't felt it. Maybe in that opening game they didn't get into a nice quick French rhythm as they would have liked to, but they have in the last 2 games. So if they can't find that quickly, they might start to get frustrated, because they did make mistakes even at the weekend. And the weekend gone by in round 3, they made some mistakes, some kind of passes going to ground or passes, some knock-ons, etc. So if Ireland can get under their skin, and Ireland definitely feel like they can get under France's skin from that warm-up, from the previous experiences, like, that keeps coming up, we haven't beaten them since 2017. But that has to end at some stage. And Ireland, for sure, even before coming into this competition, have had their eye on this quarter-final and potential matchup with France. And I know that's the thing. Is it going to be road-tested, or is it going to be absolutely battered? Like, I think that Ireland is slightly more fatigued, so especially across certain positions that have played a lot, and France had an easier pool where they were able to shake that up a little bit. So yeah, will it work? We won't know what it actually means. You said it there, we won't know what it means until, I'd say, maybe 60 minutes into the game on the weekend, like if Ireland have the full 80 in them or not. But if they can get under French skin, I think it'll remind France how close they were to losing the last time. And I think Ireland really believes like they could have beaten them.
And sorry, Sinead, shoot.
Yeah, just on that, like I remember, that post-match press conference that Scott Beeman did in Ravenhill after that game. It took him 3 minutes to bring up about the possibility that Ireland were going to face France in the quarterfinal down the line. But what also stood out for me, and that Ireland really, really need to eradicate for Sunday, was the self-sabotage they did that day against France in Ravenhill. Do you remember the 2 Stacey Flood kicks that indirectly led to 2 of the France tries?
And the exits were just appalling.
And there were unforced errors, the game management at times. I mean, France managed that end game so much better. Like if Dan O'Brien had got that kick, it would have got to 17-0 with, as you say, maybe 13, 14 minutes remaining. And you wonder if Ireland had drawn level, how that would have affected France. But it was Ireland that kind of really mismanaged that last 13, 14 minutes, whereas France, they got the penalty, they got the try. So I remember Beeman talking afterwards, and he was saying, like, we want to believe that the next time we play them, that we can beat them. So he already had an eye on that. So, but it's just that self-sabotage, those compounding of errors, that is definitely one feature I hope Ireland will definitely cut down on Sunday.
Yeah, I do always... There's no polite way of putting it on it. I do always feel like this Irish team has it in them to do something a bit mad at any point in a game.
I would say the same about the French team. But
fair enough.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. And that comes with experience. And, again, the one thing that, without the kind of changes, as many changes as maybe other teams were able to foster, that experience is building across the whole tournament. So, I think that's it's going to be interesting. Like, there's such huge moments as well that just affect the momentum. There's a lot of talk after the Blackburns game. That looks like a forward pass, for a few of the Blackburns tries. But it wouldn't have made a difference to the outcome.
Sure.
But it certainly would have made a difference to momentum. And momentum is such a massive thing, and especially versus France, who is a team who's likely to lose their head when things aren't going right. Those silly penalties or silly errors, they could save Ireland, and the experience of the tournament so far will hopefully, help those moments.
And are you seeing anything in Irish defence which is suddenly alarming you?
It's just around the ruck. Like, Ireland going to be forced to not put a third person into the ruck. to try and get on the ball, because often what they're doing is one high, one low, so they're getting a good tackle, and then someone who's folding around might try and sniff the ball out and slow the ball down or get on the ball. Like, that's a big risk actually, because you're losing that extra person. And France have a wonderful 2 lines of attack, so they're very good at picking out where the gap is if you have put a third person into the ruck. And then around the ruck itself, bouncing back to your feet really quickly, not letting those pillar areas, because all of the French team are looking for space at the pillar areas. So the first defender that's next to the ruck, all of the French team are looking there all of the time. Because if you keep pressurizing there, it just brings the defense narrower, and then you leave it out the backs where the space is elsewhere to be found. So bouncing back to their feet, and just being super alert for the full 80 minutes, because that's the thing as well. At any stage, any of those players can just they could. The front rows were doing it to them at the weekend, just sniffing, going through and scoring a try, really easy tries, because around the ruck defence wasn't super clean.
Yeah. Okay, guys. Well, I guess this is the defining game, isn't it? It was always likely to be France in a quarter-final. This is the one people possibly would have circled in the calendar and said, I'm going to sit down and watch that. This is the one, Sinead, that if they win, the bandwagon starts and suddenly there's a bit of lift-off. I know what your heart says.
Oh, I don't know. I'm going to have to wait to see the team, to be honest. And if my optimism around Aoife Wafer is founded, but I don't know. I do think of the players now. We've yet to hear from them, but I just can imagine. I feel like this week must be a bit of a head wreck, because you've just got those competing realities of getting over, their largest ever defeat to the Black Ferns in a World Cup and coming up is their biggest game of their lives against a team they've never beaten in a World Cup quarterfinal. So it's just going to be really interesting to see. I saw Sean Ryan, who's the head of their kind of culture at training there today. This is just for me about them getting their heads right, getting rid of that Black Ferns defeat, and just how they're going to manage this week in terms of making sure they're primed for this game. And I have no doubt they will absolutely drop everything. I think if Aoife Wafer is back, I think that'll be such a boost without putting too much pressure on at the same time, because we know she hasn't played in a while. So I think they're going to give it a good shot. I do. Obviously, look, I mean, if we had Erin King and Dorothy Wall, and obviously, fully fit Aoife Wafer games, you'd definitely be more confident. But obviously, there is that rider there.
Yeah, we are a little dented and bruised, Anna, going into it, whereas you kind of had always imagined this game as all systems go.
Yeah, but if you look back at that warm-up game, I suppose the team that would be more nervous coming into it would have been France, because France, felt like they could have lost it, and Ireland felt like they could have won it. The one other thing that might help Ireland's cause is, will the 40-0 scoreline provoke a bit of complacency in France, where they're kind of only half watching back the match because they just presumed Ireland were rubbish. And, that's kind of a French thing, to be honest. They could provoke a bit of complacency there if there's an equal wafer involved. And even if there isn't, I think Ireland, who literally comes to, has sorted things out, attack-wise, depth-wise, physicality-wise, and then clinicalness, which we didn't touch on actually at all, is their clinicalness in the 22. Because they did get into the 22 versus the Black Ferns. They did. They were close to scoring. That 0 is so frustrating, because they did, make it there. So it depends on how well they've done kind of the self-reflection there this week. Head and heart both say Ireland, even though I predicted that the Black Ferns would win in Vancouver last year, because I thought it was a step too far for Ireland, and I was over the moon to be completely wrong. So maybe I'll say France, because I would be over the moon to be wrong again.
Okay. I think I followed your logic. We'll go with it. Sinéad Kissane, covering it out there for Paper Online and ourselves, and Anna Caplice. Thanks so much, guys. I presume, Sinead, you two are recording a podcast post-match on Sunday?
We are indeed. Okay, and good. I'm expecting a present like you gave Ruby Tui the last day as well, Anna.
I'm like, okay, all right, let me find something here in Twickenham.
She's big time. She's BBC now. I mean, you're just hovering around annoying her. Thanks very much. Enjoy Sunday, guys.